All right, set to go up there. Good. Before I start, just want to thank everybody for your work and your coverage this year. Longer year than normal, right, with the start of camp back a week earlier because of the Hall of Fame game, 5 preseason games. And so I just want to let everybody know I appreciate your work and your efforts and your fair coverage of our franchise and our organization. And with that, start taking your questions. Troy.
Joe, how are you? I asked John this earlier. After it's been 4 straight years without the playoffs, 3 straight losing seasons. Is there a feeling, though, the way this ended at 7-5 over the last 12, 4-1 under Drew Lock, that hope has kind of returned, that you've turned the corner?
I think there is, but hope's not a good strategy, right? We've got. You pointed it out. We haven't been to the postseason. We haven't been to the tournament in 4 years. So you have to be realistic. You got to be pragmatic, and we've got a lot of work to do to get to that next stage. And it's been frustrating. I can't deny that. We're not used to this the way it's gone. So, and certainly our fans aren't either, as they've pointed out to all of you. So. Which is understandable. But, I feel like there's some good pieces in place, but there have to be some more. I think John and Vic recognize that, and they said so in their comments to you earlier. And a lot of hard work needs to be done. And when you're at this stage, there are a lot of teams that finished kind of in the neighborhood of where we finished that have the same kind of hope you're talking about. But you are what you are. Your record is what it is. And we all start at 0-0, and so how do we get over to the other side where we're contending for the playoffs and trying to win the division and all of that? There's a lot of work to be done, and you have to be very thorough in the work so that you miss less in terms of evaluating players or making decisions as coaches and that kind of stuff. And I think everybody upstairs recognizes that.
Joe, yeah. 2 parts. How do you think Vic handled his first season as a head coach? And in times like this where, a few years of losing and at that point where you're building back up, what's your philosophy just generally on how much you want to be involved in football-related decisions?
Yeah, let me, you'll have to ask me the second question again because I'll probably forget it. But on the first question, Vic did really well, I thought. He is a very good teacher and a very good communicator. And those 2 things, I really feel like the players appreciated that, liked his honesty, and he was able to command them and get them in positions where they could succeed, not only individually on the field, but collectively as a team. And so they believed in him, and they stuck with him for the whole year, and the guys came out and played hard really every single game. So that was impressive. I'm sure going from 35 years as an assistant coach up through, a lot of years as a coordinator, there's a lot of nuanced things and things that came up that he just didn't realize now he's got to deal with that previously he didn't when he was just a coordinator or an assistant coach. And he probably learned from those. He can speak to that, and I think he did a little bit this morning. So I think from an administrative and a game management standpoint, there's probably things that he'd be the first to do his own self-evaluation and tell you he can improve in that area. But John's picked a very good coach, and I'm glad he's here. And your second question was around me and being involved in football.
Just generally, what's your philosophy on that?
Not too much. I mean, I'm paying attention to everything that goes on and communicate with John, and I've communicated more with Vic than I have previous head coaches, just to get a feel for the players and the roster and his staff and things like that as the season went along, and even before the season started. And I enjoy that because it obviously keeps me present and everything. But sticking my nose in there is not a good thing at all. You trust your football staff to do the work and do it well, and give them all the resources that they need to succeed. And I'll continue to do that. That's the way we've always done it here. And as I said, hopefully that's, me sticking my nose in on decisions that's a bad idea. That they're here to do their job and they'll do it well.
Hey, Joe. Brittany Bolin, of course, rejoined the organization last month. What is sort of her roadmap for the next couple months in terms of projects and work, and how involved will you be in helping with that transition?
Well, let's see. She's working on about 4 or 5 different projects, from stadium development to the fan experience to getting some involvement with the franchise on an international level. I'm shortchanging her. There's a bunch of stuff. She described it to me as drinking from a fire hose. So that's pretty much her role for the next several months. You know, it's been really pleasant to see her back here working. She's really integrated herself really well with the staff, and you know, she's got a real opportunity here, and I think the biggest thing for her, as in my conversations with her, was to make sure that she came in and earned the respect of everybody and got to know people, and they got to know her. And this first month, she's done a terrific job at that, and I expect that to continue. You know, she has distinguished herself as the one child that we're looking at to possibly take over her father's role. There's a lot that goes into that, and it's going to need to be some cooperation from everybody in the family for that to happen. There's no question about that. So, you know, so far really good. Everything that people told me about Brittany, that whether it was at the NFL or at Duke or at McKinsey, her supervisors, her other peer employees, you know, it's 1 month, a lot of work to be done, but so far everything kind of rings true, and I'm really pleased. It's really nice, frankly, to have her in the building, so it's great.
Joe, what is today like for you, as some long-tenured guys have contracts that are up, and Chris Harris, Derek Wolfe, Justin Simmons? Do you find those guys to talk to them, and what is it like when some long-tenured guys could be stepping away?
Yeah, I saw Derek Wolfe a couple weeks ago. Chris came up to me this morning, and we had a great conversation. And you know, he's done a lot for this organization, on and off the field. And you know, I hope we sign them all back, but that's not my decision. That's just how I am. I think they really rose to the occasion this year and rallied some of the younger guys. But you know, John and Vic will have some tough decisions to make. But the conversation with Chris, he sought me out. I was in the training room. He came over and we talked for a few minutes. And I'm just, you know, he's a professional, and whether it's in a game or at practice, he gives you everything he has, and he's done that. And you know, I'd love to see him come back and help us. That's a football decision, as I said, that I won't make. But he's at a point in his career and his life where, you know, I wish him the best. He deserves the best for himself, and wherever he goes or wherever he ends up, and I hope it is back here, but it may not be. I don't know. Wherever he ends up, he'll help a team win, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to win, and he shows that by how he practices and by how he plays, and he shows that to you all after games with his comments. And I mean, I think that's first and foremost what he's after. And I think for that, he, you know, knowing he's a professional and been a great player, he wants to be treated fairly when it comes to compensation, and I respect that at this point in his career. So, you know, it's tough to see these guys if they aren't going to be here, but again, I don't know that, and John and Vic will kind of circle the wagons and make those decisions. Who's next? Mike?
Yeah, Joe. Are you surprised that regarding the family and everything, that things have gotten, there's been so much acrimony and things have been contentious as far as the fight that you're dealing with the lawsuits? And then second part is, one of the points of contention in the lawsuit has to do with the 2009 trust versus the 2002. Can you speak to that part of it, the contention they have there?
Yeah, well, let me answer the second part of that, and then I'll get back to the first, Mike. The people that knew Pat, that know Pat, or knew him at that time and that were around him a lot and did not have an agenda or a motive, know full well that Pat had his capabilities and was able to make decisions in 2009. So that would be my answer, and I won't go any further on that. In terms of being surprised that all this has come to what it has come to, which is 3 separate lawsuits. Frankly, after 6 years of letters and communications with different sets of lawyers, I'm not surprised at all.
Joe, for a long time you would talk about your relationship with Pat, and you always made a point of talking about how he was doing and it all being about Pat. How do you think, I know you can't really speak for him, but how do you think he'd feel about these lawsuits and about the way this is kind of playing out in the legal system?
I don't know. He's not here to speak to it. I think he'd be disappointed. But that's what I think. It's not what I know. I mean, he set his trust up with 3 independent, non-family trustees. It hasn't gone the way certain people want it to go, I guess. But I think he'd be disappointed by what he sees right now.
Joe, heard from a lot of fans that have commented on the uniforms, the color rush look a couple weeks back, the blue on white a few weeks ago. Kind of where do you stand on things regarding kind of that part, that visual identity of the team?
Well, you and I had a conversation about this the other day, and I think there's kind of mixed feelings about everything. A lot of people like the color rush, they like the blue, they like the orange. I'm a big fan of the blue jersey and the white pants. A lot of players came up to me asking about that, whether we could change back to that. I will say, and Andrew, I think you pointed this out, that the orange jersey created a scene in the stadium, if you will, where everybody's wearing orange, and I think that's pretty powerful. I think the players like that. I think it's a nice spectacle, and so I'm not sure we're going to change anything. There's some rules that the league has in terms of uniform change. You have to wait a while for various reasons centered around retail and other things. But, I'm still interested in seeing whether the fans are, there seems to be sort of a bullish movement on blue the way there used to be a bullish movement on orange. So, and me personally, I like the blue jersey. I do at home. I think it's powerful, but I like the orange stands too, so you can't have it both ways necessarily.
Joe, how do you, from your seat, view the no-shows over those last 3 home games? Obviously, it was a huge number against the Chargers, dwindled dramatically. But how do you view those no-shows from kind of your chair in a business perspective? And is there a chance that the Broncos will play in London against Atlanta next season? What are you hearing on that?
Yeah, on the no-shows, I am concerned. People start speaking with their feet. It gets my attention. And I think it gets everybody's attention around here, as it should. So, when someone doesn't show up, that means the ticket had no value to them. And that's concerning. So, look, we have a lot of research, and some of it you provide through your various Twitter or social media accounts, whatever it is. We do our own voice of the fan research after every home game. We have a lot of business intelligence, artificial intelligence, whatever you want to call it, data that we get back. Mobile ticketing allows for a lot of that. And it's of concern to me, and it's a concern around the league, and sometimes it goes unspoken, but when you have that many no-shows, people are saying something. Now, I think generally what they're saying is one word: win. Win. And that was the common theme of most games. Even when we did win the home games, we finished 5-3 at home, which is better than recent years, and that's always good. And our strong December finish was good. But that's what the fans want, They're sort of they're sick and tired of losing seasons, and I'm sick and tired of them being sick and tired, because I understand where they're coming from. So it's something we just got to turn around, and you have to be honest with the fans. You know, I can't send them a letter and explain that we're trying hard. You know, that if they get a printed copy of that, they'll scrunch it up and throw it in the trash, and if they get it on the computer, they'll hit that delete button, and I understand that. So, you know, we just have to go out and show it. We got to win games. Oh, London, yeah, was your second question. No, I haven't heard anything from the league other than I've pestered and begged them. I think it'd be really good for us to go there, and I put in a personal request to Arthur Blank, and he came up to me at the last league meeting and was supportive. But you know, the league's got to do what's best for them in terms of their international strategy. But I think it'd be good for the franchise, good for the organization. We had a good trip there last time, with the exception of some shenanigans. But you know, it's worthwhile for the club and the organization to go there, and it boosts your brand a little bit. And I don't know if John and Vic are too thrilled with it, but I just think it's good for us, and I hope we get the opportunity. I'm basically begging to get it because I think it'd be really good for us to play there. No, I think it's Atlanta. I think they would play at Tottenham, if I pronounce that correctly. There's a new stadium, and that we're on their home schedule, so we'll see. You'll know how much sway I have when they announce. I think they probably announced that around Super Bowl, if I'm not in it. Yeah. Yeah, Nikki.
What's your expectation for how long the case may take in Arapahoe County? I mean, are you expecting a resolution sometime this year?
Well, the case is set, it's been publicly disclosed for September 2nd, and I don't know how long that takes, but I expect it to go there. So by the end of September, I would assume we'd know something. Well, I just separate it because I have to. It's just part of the deal, and I signed up for it, and Pat asked me, and I was, you know, kind of flattered that he did, so I took it on, and you know, it occupies a lot of time. I'm not going to mislead you, and it's distracting, and it's disappointing, right? Litigation, it's no fun, but you know, you just got to deal with it. And one thing I will say is you know, the staff, everybody here creates a little uncertainty for them, I think. You know, it's kind of unpleasant for them to read about it, but you know, they've just they've pulled themselves together and not let it faze them, and worked hard. And you know, on the business side, we're doing really good things, and I think on the football side, I'm hopeful we've got some. We talked to John at length I think I've had 3 visits with him in the last couple of weeks about looking at everything from our people to our process to our structure, how we do things. And, you know, everybody that works here, I admire their dedication to the organization. I really do. And they're able to keep that litigation and the family uproar off to the side and do their jobs and do it to the best of their ability. And, you know, quite frankly, I'm pretty lucky and grateful that that's the case.
Joe, at one point this team was 3-8 this season, and there were calls from the fans about making some changes within the front office, but then you kept things going on. The team won 4 or 5 to end the season, and now with the youth looking to be on the right track. But from your perspective, what is the importance of having that same voice, consistent leadership, in order to get this team back into winning ways?
Well, continuity is good, but when you're in the position we're in, you have to, within having the same people in place, take a look at everything from your staffs to how you do things, whether it's in coaching or in personnel, to are we structured the right way. And you know, I asked John to do all of that after talking with him, and I think he will. I know he will. And but you know, you can change and have continuity. And I think we have to change some things, and probably will. I don't know when that will happen, or I don't know the exact timing of that. We'll still have conversations. You know, these guys have been through a hard season, the coaching staff, personnel people, and they'll go away for a couple weeks and reflect, which I think is a good thing. I know that's important to them, and I think it's right. So, but having continuity helps as long as you're willing to recognize where you are and correct some things that need to be corrected. Mark.
Canton last summer was a great celebration of Pat Bowlen and Champ Bailey. What would it mean to this organization this year to have, or this coming year to have, somebody like Steve Atwater and Randy Gradishar going to the Hall?
Yeah, they better all get in. You know, Steve better get in, right, Steve? Come on now. And Randy deserves to be in. You know, Randy played at a time where I think there really was more recognition to people in different zip codes or geographic areas. So I feel like he's been overlooked. Steve has been overlooked, but last year I think came very close. So I got my fingers crossed for him. He should be in there. And you know, Dan Reeves had a ton of contributions to football as a player coach, as a head coach, took 2 different teams to Super Bowls. So he's been a great contributor to football. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in. I'm leaving some people out. John Lynch played here, you know. I'd love to see him get in. We don't have enough players in there. Pat always felt that, and I do too. But Jeff's a Denver representative, and he's doing a better job these days and getting some people in. So he should be proud of himself. You just got to get a few more in, Jeff, you know, and then you can pass the torch or whatever. But I'm bullish on the names you mentioned, Mark. So it'd be fun. It'd be fun to have another celebration in Canton, that's for sure.
Joe, Drew in particular, what did you think of his first 5 games at quarterback, and what could it mean for the business side of the franchise if he can kind of establish himself as the long-term face at quarterback?
Well, I think the energy and the youthful enthusiasm, looked like he was having fun, happened to play pretty well, showed signs of really having the potential to be a really, really good quarterback in this league. I think that gives fans and certainly gives the organization some optimism for the future. No question about that, you know. I was pleased to hear yesterday when he said that he was going to, you know, work with John and work with Peyton in the offseason because, you know, you can see he's got some really good tools athletically and everything else to be a great quarterback, but it's a hard position in this league, and it's the most important position in sports, and requires a lot of hard work, a lot of study, and if you want to master your craft and be great at it, and if he wants to do that, you know, I think he can. It requires a lot of work, so I was pleased yesterday to hear him talk about how he was going to go about the offseason, and you know, he definitely infused some energy in the organization and in the team, and you know, maybe that carries over to business. You know, we'll see. I think it will, but you don't know. But it does give people something to look forward to going into next season for sure. As do some of the other younger players. Obviously, you know, there's a pretty good core of younger players. We got to get it a little deeper. And as I said, you know, you have to do everything you can to research these players, evaluate them before you bring them in, so you're making more right decisions than are wrong decisions. Everybody misses in this league, and everybody's got holes, especially teams in our neighborhood in terms of win-loss records. So, you know, we got to be really good as to how we sort of keep building on this roster in this off season.
Joe, with the legal stuff in the courts, but also with Brittany back in the organization, is a sale of the team still an option at some point?
The way I would answer that is it is an option, and we've told the beneficiaries that because, you know, if Brittany were to succeed and take over for her father, everybody else is going to have to sign off on that, most likely. That may not be a requirement, but it's going to be necessary, I think, moving forward from a trustee viewpoint. So, that's why a sale remains a possibility, I think, given the circumstances we're in.
Joe, kind of a two-part Brittany question. The first is, what has she done to distinguish herself compared to, up against her other 6 siblings? And then 2, is there a timetable or plan to kind of bring her along to owners' meetings with you and league meetings sooner than later, or is that just going to be determined?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but to answer the second part of that, we're going to rush to owners' meetings quite yet because she's got a lot of work to do. But I just think her overall demeanor, how she's carried herself, very comfortable in her skin, very smart. Everybody's, from her past jobs and education and everything, has spoken very highly of her, whether it's people she reports to or people she works with. And I'm back in New York a lot, and I spoke to a lot of the people that she worked with and spoke to several of the people at McKinsey that she's worked with. And, she's just, she's got a really good future ahead of her, whether she's succeeds her father or not. She's very comfortable in her own skin and very confident, very intelligent, hardworking, unassuming, not trying to have the Bolin name get her anything in particular. And just, as I said, she's really integrated herself well here in the first month, and I've had a lot of people come up to me and tell me that. It's fun. As I said, it's been fun to have conversations with her, and most of them down at the stadium, so we got to get her down here a little bit more. That'd be my next goal. So she's doing some stuff with Justin Webster, our CFO, so got to get her down here a little bit more often so she sees this part of the building, this part of the organization as well.
Joe, you talked about the color of the jerseys, but one thing that seems to have a lot of support is the Color Rush helmet with the old D on there. Would there be any consideration to going back to that, or maybe an updated version of that?
No, that's something I won't decide. Now, if Brittany or some other owner comes in here, you can ask that question to them. But no, that's not. That'll be a one-off as a throwback logo, if you will, moving forward. Thanks, everybody.